mphathi sihlalo asibonge lelithuba osinikeza lona. Kumaqali, the veterans of this party and the founders of this party, we salute you. Siba saluta ngoba abaqambanga manga. Lenda bayi decide ngo 59 basayibona iqiniso namhlanje. Lokho ukukhombisa ukuthi babengaqamba manga, babengakhohlisi ababekhona. Bingelele i-host yethu i-PEC ngaphansi kwesihlalo. Sibingelele nazo zonke inhlaka ze-PEC. Sibingelele ama-branches. Ama-branches yiwo ama-owners ze-PEC. Ngoba sike sikhohle sicabanga ukuthi i-PEC ownwa ngama-members. I-PEC ayi-ownwa ngama-members. And ayi-directwa ngama-members. I-directwa ama-branches. Balulekile ukusho lokho ngoba ama-branches wethu ayaziyekelela bese akhala ukuthi i-PEC i-weak. Wona ama-branch. But as owners, yibo abenza iy'nqumo ezenza i-PEC e-weak. Niyangizwa ma-Afrika? Ngisho ngibingelela ama-branches. Namhlanje ngizokhuluma ngama-component structures, ngiyokhuluma ngawo ngamalanga awo, maye ngi-invitile. Mafrika umoya wami uphansi nyana ngoba before ngize la ekuseni sibuye kuyobeka u-deputy chairman wami we-region engisebenze kamnandi naye, sasebenzela umphakathi kamnandi. Okunye engizokusho la yinto yena iphilile practically. uTepo Khomasipa angenimazi ngoba adingayisi national leader. But I can tell you njengomuntu engisebenze naye sikhona ama branches ukuthi bekuyindoda enesibindi. Bekuyindoda ekwaziyo ukuthi mawuthi bamba la ibambe izandla iqine. Ngoba aba branches asinikeza abantu abamfeke singama structures aphezulu. Uma Sbusiso inkinga ebranchini ekuthiwa simthumele region. Uma region imthole inkinga ekuthiwa simthumele ku province. Khona sosala sisebenza kahle. Uma inkinga national ke siba nenkinga ukuthi asikwazi ukumthumela ndawo. Kodwa lenkinga yokuthumela abantu aba weak nabantu abayi problem Africa iphela. Kukahle ngoba ngikhuluma phakathi kwama NEC members amaningi ala. Ama former NEC members. So banga testify lento engishoyo ukuthi baningi umuntu usenational kodwa mayisukume ukhuluma ukuthi mina eregionini yami kwenzeka into ethile. Umbona ukuthi lo muntu lo ufana ubizwe useregionini. But uyinkinga la. That's why region imthumele phezulu. But angithunywanga ke kuzokhuluma lokho. Bayeza abazokhuluma lokho secretary. Abantu aba responsible ama structures abo national organizer. Kuthiwe namhlanje ngizokhuluma nge-subject enzima ukukhuluma ngayo ngoba abantu bafuna bread and butter issues. Manje makukhulunywa bread and butter issues wena ukhuluma spiritual issues kuba nengxaki. ngoba PAC akusiyo organization yama bread and butters issue only. The organization yama bread and butter issue, but the organization kamoya. Kubese kungazwakali ke lokho ngoba kwesinye isikhathi uma sithi we must be attached and understand the concrete material conditions. Bese sibuya sithi singabantu bakamoya. Kuba ngazuthi kuyaphambana. Angisho my friend. Ngiyacheka ngapha kubantu abayaziyo lento abayakhaya. Kuba ngasuthi kuyaphambana. Ngoba we say materialism is critical. The history ebambekayo is critical. But isikhuluma nge-spiritual interest. Njoba iphondo lingithumile ukuthi angizokhuluma ngokukhululeka kwengqondo. Siyikhulula kanjani ingqondo yomAfrika? Kungithathe ukuthi angibuze ukuthi yini ingqondo. Ingqondo akusikho ubuchopho. A mind is not the material gray element, which is the brain. There is a difference between the brain and the mind. Brain is not limited to a container, which is the body. The brain is the consciousness. Isazelo unembeza. So uma sikhuluma ngokukhululeka kwengqondo, sikhuluma ngokukhululeka kanembeza, siyajula, siyaphuma beyond the material you can touch. But asiyishiyi iscience, because as the PAC we're a scientific party. Singamquote Sobukwe, simquote Liberate, but even them, asithatha them, what they say as a dogma. Sithatha as a science and we receive it as a science. Yilento ke ngoba sesiphumile kuba i-organization ye-science mafika said essence ukuthi ama-policies wethu sibe comfortable ukusenza i-policy ngo-1994 or ngo-1996. That is unscientific. Angiye ngale ekugcineni. Siqale ekugcineni sathi yini ingqondo? Sathi yini ukukhululeka? Ngoba ukukhululeka akusho ukuthi uzophuma out of service. Angithi mawugqilazekile, you have to serve your master. Mawukhululekile, you continue to serve. Mawubophelekile, you suffer. Mawukhululekile, this suffering does not stop. It just changes form. Mawugqilazekile engqondweni, you don't sacrifice. You mehlukulapho. You get sacrificed. Kanti yini lokukhululeka uma izinto icishe ihlale ngendlela efanayo? Ukukhululeka ilokhu ade kusho uMafrika uSeth yokuthi you have to be able to serve your purpose. Uthi uSobukwe were nothing We're just instruments of history. We are instruments. So ukukhululeka kwakho removing from you being an instrument. The only difference is that we instrument yani. We are the instruments of the African people. And the PAC does not exist for itself. The PAC exists to serve the African nation. Mafrika, program yokwakha PAC, can I declare namhlanje is finished? Because we've been building and building and building the PAC. We have to get into the program of building the nation. That's where we will find our own freedom. By fulfilling our own purpose, by fulfilling our own historic mission. Angizwa ngoba nisafuna ukubuild iPAC. That project is finished. The project esingena kuyo angifuni ukuzwa futhi sithi salontsha. Silontsha ibranch eKhayelitsha eyalonjwa ngo-1959 namhlanje sayilontsha. Why are we repetitive? Why are we standing? Why sishaya imatch in the same position? iPAC izokwakhiwa ukuthi sakhe isizwe. When we are building the nation, the structures will build themselves. That's why I see NEC, President not deputy uyeza kule region, kule province, ukuzokusha strategy. Strategy said it's simple, it's not 5 things only. We want to raise the consciousness of the nation. We want to build public campaigns. That's why I say asingene with positive action. City sifuna ukwakha leadership revolutionary. City sifuna ukwakha international solidarity na indigenous people, specific people. In Europe, sizokwakha a relationship nama indigenous Europeans. Europe, ayla. South America, asizukukhuluma nabantwana bama-settlers. We'll talk to indigenous people in South America. And sakhe solidarity ukuthi bathole lento esiyifunayo. Like izwe labo nathi sithole izwe lethu. Ile topic ye strategy engithanda kakhulu, but nangisusa kuleyo department nangibeka kule ye organizational culture le khuluma ngezinto eyisemoyeni ze spirit. Angibuyele ku department yami. Uyeza upresident ukuzokwenza umsebenzi wakhe no deputy wakhe. Nowhere in our strategy we say build structures, because we assume what the structures have been built. We are talking about what structures should do. Free the mind, freeing the mind of an African. Ukukhululeka is to serve the purpose. How do you do that? Umbuzo engibuzwe wona ukuthi how do we do it? There are 4 things ezibalulekile. Perspective, process, perception, practice. Ngokulandelana kwazo. If we're gonna release our people from the bondage, the first thing, we must change their perspective. Kunomehluko ukuthi into uyibona ukuphi. Kunomehluko mawubuka umfula usentabeni noma ungaphansi kwamanzi. Ukuphi. But nayi inkinga ukuthi iPAC it's got many members who don't have the same perspective njengoSobuko. They are looking at our nation. They are looking at the world, at humanity from a different perspective. That's why it's easy for us to preach hatred. Because as Sbusiso ukuthi thina we are fighting the noblest cause on earth, the liberation of humankind. Therefore, we cannot afford to hate. We are founded in love of humanity. So, in perspective, unfortunately, I sing our it's about conditions. The conditions that are created around African people are the ones that will produce a particular perspective. That's a politics of interest and the politics of understanding your own interest. Verwoed, we are big. As Afrikaners, they use the church to build their own nation. They preach and encourage everyone to attain maximum discipline. Combination of Afrikaner nationalism and the church, which will make you follow rituals and ceremonies that will keep you in a particular manner. But because it's at war, on our side, he talks about Afrikaner, what is this, Christian education. But ugcwalisa amabhara in every location. Because Uferwood, he knows, he's a sociologist. He understands how to manipulate conditions. The current government has allowed drugs systematically to permeate our society. What are they doing? They are creating conditions for a particular perspective. Ukuthi abantu bethu babuke the world from a desperate situation. Ngeke uzokhululeke uwari ngokufulfill perspective uhlwempu ngalendlela yokuthi mawuvuka ucabanga ukudla. Mabekudinga bazokuthengela iKentucky badiyenza noma yini. You will kill people for Kentucky. Perspective. So what has to be done by the party to change the perspective? We have to change the conditions. And to change the conditions, we cannot wait until we are government. Xaba lengoma ethi asenzi lutho asenzi lutho asenzi lutho badiqiniso ngilena iyangihlaba because ngiyibuza ukuthi yiqiniso ingileyo. Are we changing the conditions practically? What we're able to do together is to preach to Africa, la leader at that time, that we shall build institutions, economic institutions. Kule region, I can tell you now, sine funerals, nama funeral structures, I2, sine financial organization. Sbusiso is not part of all of them, but we have dedicated, we will create institutions and will change conditions. Even if we start gama conditions, our members wait. Why should we be happy that our people are employed? Expanded program works. While it will not change their material conditions. Why do you think they keep townships and keep us so compressed? Because they want us to explode and keep us in the perspective of desperation. I call you in life in abundance. You are called into the PAC to the life in abundance. So why unesa in poverty around you and in you? Because it will maintain the wrong perspective. Angeke uzofike ukuba pan-Africanist. You'll remain an African because you are indigenous to Africa. But you will not get to a step higher of being an Africanist, of being a specialist on Africa and African people. Section B, where African Manifesto, young mangas in Africa. Section B, we have to go to team. Uti Nina, Band. You are not Africa. Because uthi maqeda section A athi bafika bezofuna ama markets. He says that they took away people. Yayibona? Then it goes further. The land is not Africa. Because section B uthi they took away the land. Then he says they raped Africa. So yaibo ukuthi Africa mawuyibheka from this perspective is not you, it's not your land, it's something else. I call you to this perspective. Yoguti, let's understand Africa. Then what is Africa? Africa is a civilization that has stood for the past 10,000 years or 25,000 years. That's why those pyramids that are so big that we don't have machinery to build them today. You cannot build the Gaza today. We don't have equipment to build it. How did they build it? Because Africa was advanced than we advanced now. Let's absorb and take the perspective of Africa as a civilization and as a culture of love. A perspective then leads you to the process. You can have a right perspective, but there can be a problem. Then you get into the wrong process. The perspective has a lot of belief. But once you get to the process, we must enter the scientific world, the work of proof and facts and evidence. We get stuck into events. Abantu abangahlakaniphanga bakhuluma ngabantu. Abangconywana bakhuluma ngama-events. Abathe ukuhlapuluka bakhuluma ngama-processes. That's why Sinclair as an NEC, let's get into a campaign. Let's understand what is a campaign. A campaign is a long-term process of systematically bringing up. Because when we organize a campaign, siba kuvuthwa ndaba, siba ku climax before time. Because we don't run things as a proper project. Angithi mase sikhuluma kamnandi sikhuluma ngo dialectic materialism. That to us is not our belief or our core. That for us is a process. We have learned from the likes of Marx that method, because you can see, if you understand dialectic materialism, you can see the African Manifesto that it shows that clearly that it was used.
Very clear.
But it's a method, it's a process, it's a tool. We must continuously apply that tool when we engage our communities. Singaloku si memorize, si recognition. We must learn how to use the tool and enter into the world of processes. How do we free the minds in a process? Asenze lutho ngomlomo. But wherever we go, we are talking more than our constituencies. That's our problem. Because it's full of pusha Pan-Africanism as a dogma. As a full of wifaga as a science. I call on you, Maverick. Can we ask our people more questions than we give them answers? But there's a science in asking questions. You ask the questions that will increase the consciousness and free up the mind. Because it only grows when it takes out something. It doesn't grow by absorbing. Angazi noma uyangizwa. Ufunda kakhulu uma ukhuluma than uma utshelwa. That's why ingane yakho teenager ngeuyenze lutho until ihambe ithi ukusha kancane. Because whatever you tell does not make a difference. But if you are able to ask the right questions. Bukahle sonke siyagugula manje. Ake sigugule, how do you do inquisitive and inquiring mind, inquiring questions, so that sizokhuphula our ability to coach. EPAC has always said that it will not liberate people, but people will liberate itself. So it always positions itself as a coach rather than a player. It doesn't score goals. The masses must score their own goals, but the PAC must coach them. So, ukuba coach, you don't need to have been the best player. But if coach is a science on its own, you must understand the process of coaching. We will only assist our people by coaching them and mentoring them as a science, not as a dogma. Who cares? Marx wayebhala PhD yakhe. Great PhD, siyayithanda. But he's not Alpha and Omega. We just learn the tool. And over the years, since Alpha, we have improved on the application of the tool. I'm sorry to say this, but also, Usobugo will be disappointed that we have not gone beyond his own understanding of the human condition. we cannot have Sobukwe thought as a dogma as well. We must read it, scientifically test it, understand it for ourselves, allow our communities to scientifically test it. It's rich enough to defend itself. It doesn't need you to defend it. Naigi process, you have the perspective, and because you are looking at the right places, you are absorbing data, you are sensing things through all your senses, including the fifth sense, and you are putting it into the process of dialectic materialism. And it comes out on the other side. It gives you a perception. Truth is relative. Le nto ekuthiwa iqiniso inzima ukuyibamba. Khona iqiniso lakho, khona elami, then khona iqiniso langempela, the real truth. And as human beings, because we got perspectives, we are looking at things from perspectives. Iqiniso liyasaluda, liyasibalekela, true facts, because it comes out of interpretation. Once there is interpretation, the process is interpretation. Once there is interpretation, there are fault lines, there are mistakes, there are errors. Abantu be-statistics bayayazi ukuthi there are two errors. Ngikhulume ngawo namhlanje. When you deal with data, when you deal with what you have sensed, you will always have these two errors. And those errors, the process should have been done well, but because of your perspective, it just does not come out as a truth. So how do we make sure that these perceptions are correct among our people and among ourselves, for us to be free and be able to fulfill our purpose? It's because you must be free from an ego. You must know ukuthi Africa unosipho usosipho, sorry Africa. Sisipho mncane kunawe, but she could have refined the facts better than you. Give yourself opportunity to engage her. Ungasho lo mntana. Ne experience yala maqala, sine advantage, sine asset which most organizations don't have. Angazi noma nake nahlala nalamakhezo. They will sit and ask you questions and don't give you answers, and keep on asking questions. Do you think they don't know? But they see what you are not open, you are not open, you are not ready. Your perceptions are still blinding you. Can you release yourself from perception and assist our people to release themselves from their own perceptions? You need to iterate, you need to read that basic document. Uma uyifunda usukhulile, it's different than when you read it for the first time. I-document leya ngiyengisabe ngoba sometimes we wanna change it. We wanna amend. Ngithi yes, sizo-amend into esiyi-understand and dilute it, because our perception have not reached, are not closer to the truth. We have not corrected the two errors sufficiently for us to be able to either translate it to our languages or amend it. Ngoba soqamba manga sizoyenza ibe limited to what we know. Sihlalo ngizothatha isikhathi sakho kufanele bese ngihlala phansi manje. But angigcine ngalokho, the last point. Once your perspective has been reorientated and you continue to reorientate it to find the right position that emanates from the African culture and African civilization, and you are able to use the latest tools as a process that we have agreed on that we're going to use. Because nalento yokusebenzisa ama-tools wakho, sibe na 3 different opinions of how this party analyzes, it's a problem. Then you correct that, assist you are open to redo the process as many times as possible to clean up your perception. Then that gets you to the practice. How are we going to free African mind? Or the mind of the African people? Abantu abafuna ukuzwa ngawe, they want you to see it. If Pan-Africanism talks like it talks in the disciplinary code, how you should behave, and you behave otherwise, why should they listen to you? Pan-Africanism is a community of practice. We live Pan-Africanism. Stop preaching Pan-Africanism. Live it. You will see we will be in stadiums. We can free African people's minds by living Pan-Africanism from a right perception. Because ucabanga ukuthi le Pan-Africanism uyayazi, awuyazi. Start practicing it so that you can realize ukuthi awuyazi, awukafiki khona. It will kill your ego. Ucabanga ukuthi nguwe fanele workshop every time. You will know what you know nothing. Starting with you, Sbusiso. You have to practice it. Through positive action. We are not reactionaries. The name of other parties must get out of our lips. Must get out of our songs. We must start living our own. I learn a lot from organizations like Hamas. I learn a lot from organizations like Nation of Islam. I learn a lot from organizations like the Islam Brotherhood. Because they have mastered the art of creating a government in the presence of government. Africa, as here we need money, a lot of money. But let's create people who will make money here, who already have the right perspective, they practice, they move with the right process, they have the right perception, so that we can use that money to create a different society. The African is socialist democracy will not happen through parliament. I'm not sure what African need to inside my elections. But let's know that it will not happen through parliament. It will happen through community of practice. When are we separating from these communities and go and open our own communities? When are we opening our own Orion? When are we opening our own business? Ngihlala nobaba uMthimunye ngale Pitori. He always came to a regional meeting and say, what keeps you together? What keeps you together? He said that for 5 years without us having an answer. Do you have an answer? What keeps you together? Events? Insulting other parties? What keeps you together? The solution that we came with, we said we're going to finish ububa phakathi kwethu. We're going to start our own institutions. We call on you, Africa, to start your own institutions. Our branches, what do they do? Why do we need them? Those branches must start institutions. We must feed the society through our structures. What is on the agenda of a branch meeting? It should be positive action. Positive action is building something. It's not destroying something. Asake sazimali khona bezoyintshontsha sazi ukuthi that's a cleaning process, we kick them out, they leave. Because abanye bezela imali. So let's create money so that they can quickly steal it, so that we can know them and clean them and create the process of self-cleansing and create another institution again. But no nation exists without institutions. We must not eat what we do not produce. Sifana siphimsele sinyathele esingayiproduce ayithi. Singayifaki emlonyeni. Ninami my friend. Chairperson ngicabanga ukuthi ngithatha longer than you want to. But ngizobamba kancane ngemic ngenkani. Because I want this point to be clear. Ukuthi PAC is not limited to council seats and parliamentary seats. It's a wrong measure. We have almost had my elections. We scoreboard, so how influential are we in society? Very important scoreboard, but it's not work. Campaigning 3 months before the election is not work. Work is creating institutions that create life for our people, starting with our own members. Mafrika, angeke sikhulule ingqondo sisaphethe ububa. Poverty and freedom don't stay in the same house. We glorify it and see it as revolutionary. That's not scientific, that's untrue. There was an interesting interview. Afrika Mutupeng, he stated categorically that my grandparents were very rich. Look at all your leaders. And look at you, because you are not honest as well to yourself. Look at your own background. What brings you here? It's because somehow poverty was not very close to you. But because you think it's revolutionary, sometimes that your perception thinks that I come from a poor background. It's not true compared to your society. Usuku namhlanje uzokwazi ukuthi we must free our mind. Ukuthi the PAC, the way sebenza ngayo in the past 30 years, is not the one that is supposed to be there. The one that is supposed to be there is the one that controls institutions. We must learn from the Afrikaners. We must learn from Islam. How do they free themselves against the English? I'm not talking about Islamic governments because they are puppets, most of them. But I'm talking about those institutions that I highlighted to you. Study them, look at them, and know how they are freeing their people. From the Western civilization, from the Eastern civilization, to their own civilization, for us to the African civilization. As Liberate say, we are building, we yearn for yesterday's Africa, but that's not what we're building. We're building a new Africa, not looking like yesterday. Don't be excited about yesterday's success. We used to be the biggest civilization. All the Western civilization that has ever emerged, they learned from us. They also made their wealth from us. Go and study Roman history. Go and study Greek history. It will tell you that for them to be wealthy, they had to trade with Africa. Even go and study Chinese history or Indian history. It will always come to the same thing, that we were a great civilization. But currently, we are not. Because we are not practicing our own. We are defeated so much. Oguti, as I stand in front of you, angwazi ukuyibamba ngesixhosa from the beginning to the end. Because I need refinement. Because my perception and your perception, uma ngayikhuluma ngesiZulu from the beginning to the end, ngiyoba ngishayanga, it will not be civilized enough. Because we are civilized from a Western point of view. We need to move from that perspective, put our own practices, correct our perception, and practice Pan-Africanism as a living and a practical theory, not as a artificial, as a kulmama stangen. When we live our life, we live West. Thank you.